no regrets, no confusion. There'll be no pollution. I'm so thankful I've decided to change my ways.
Welcome back to the show, Dinah. How are you doing?
I am fantastic. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you, Gavi?
I am feeling good. What are we all drinking today? Are we drinking? I'm drinking.
Water.
You're drinking water? This is the fourth iteration of the Leaving Eden Drag Brunch.
Is it really the fourth?
It is.
I think.
I had to count the other day because we did 20, 21, 22, 23, and 24.
Oh my
Wow.
gosh.
It's been so long. We've been friends for so long.
That is a long time.
Next year will be the 5-year anniversary.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
We'll have to do something special next year.
That would be super fun. I did not bother getting a drink today. I got really sunburned yesterday.
Oh, so you have to stay hydrated.
Yeah, so I'm trying to take care of myself. I put sunscreen on one arm, and then I forgot to put sunscreen on the other arm. And so I have one arm that is very sunburned.
Oh, no.
Like, I would make fun of you for that, but I also know that you're the mother of a small child, and it seems like forgetting you have two arms could come with the territory.
Yeah, I mean, she had SPF 50 all over and looked like a baby ghost because I put the mineral sunscreen on her. She looks like little baby Gottmik.
Also, I think making fun of somebody for one of their arms being sunburned would be a little like throwing rocks in glass houses, because I believe, Dinah, your partner is a truck driver.
He is. That's true. That's true. I've never noticed that one side of him is particularly darker than the other.
Can you go double check for us?
Yeah.
Well, he's not home right now, but I will check that out and report back.
Thank you. This is crucial information.
Yeah, well, I'm a journalist.
Yeah. No, I really try to avoid sun damage for anti-aging reasons, and I forgot an arm yesterday. And it's the same arm that I pulled a muscle in while blow drying my hair.
Bro.
On Sunday morning.
Oh, no.
Yeah, on Sunday morning, I was blow drying my hair and felt a unpleasant pop and was in unbearable pain the rest of the day.
Oh, no.
So I pulled something between my pectoral muscle and whatever is in my arm, or both. I don't know what I did or how I did it, but it hurt so bad.
I did the same thing to my neck the other day. I can't even remember what I was doing. I was looking for something, and I looked down at the stool. I think I was looking to see if my keys were somewhere, and I looked down at the stool, and I felt a pop in my neck. And it was just blinding pain for about 30 minutes, and then it went away. But
yeah, this is like what happens.
Wrong?
Sneeze wrong? Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, you ever sneeze wrong and throw your back out?
Mm-hmm.
See, I hold my sneezes in. So, like, if you hear me sneeze, I go like that. So I'm assuming that at some point in the future, like, they're all just going to come out of me all at once, and it's going to be a huge problem.
I mean, Shrek taught us better out than in.
No, this is apparently a thing that happens when you get into your 30s. But yeah. I've been so tender of my right arm, and it's hard to have a toddler without your dominant hand, if you were wondering, because she's screaming, Mom, I need apple juice, and I can only lift the apple juice with one hand, and it takes me twice as long to get her apple juice, which with the 3-year-old is kind of catastrophic. And then it was finally starting to feel better yesterday, and I sunburned that same arm. So that's how I'm doing. But other than that, I'm great.
It reminds me of that movie, The Lady in the Water, where there's the guy that only works out on one side of his body. And so he's like super jacked on one arm, and then the other side is super skinny.
I've never
Just-
seen that, but that's intriguing.
I wonder what would happen if you actually did that in real life.
Well,
Like,
you're the gym bro, wouldn't you know?
Yeah.
But I try to be holistic with it. I'm like, and I go to the gym every day, but I'm not like a gym bro. I'm not like creatine smoothies for breakfast and replacing all of my meals with chicken and rice and broccoli with no seasoning. That's
Yeah. Well, anyway, Dinah, we hear. Yes. We hear that you have a birthday/anniversary that you're celebrating with us on the Leaving Eden Drag Brunch.
I am, in fact. Dinah is turning 10, which is
Aww.
wild to me. But
10.
Yeah, it is the 10th anniversary of the first time that Dinah ever made a public appearance. And it is just, boggles my mind that it's been 10 years, because it feels like that was 6 months ago.
And so that was in 2014.
Yeah.
Wow. I had, in 2014, I had, I think, one pair of jeans, maybe, and waist length Miss America curly hair that I slept in pin curls every night to have it exactly right.
Wow, yeah.
Was committed.
Wow. Well, in honor of this, and they can see because I'm on camera, but you guys can't see, I'm actually wearing, and this just arrived in the mail today, my Dinah House-Fire t-shirt in baby pink. It looks great. I do have to say, I based the design off of the Funko Pop that Dinah. When did you send us those Funko Pop pictures?
We did an episode.
Was it New Year's or was it
New Year?
last drag brunch?
Yeah, it was a while ago, but you sent us pictures that were like AI generated, like if it was a Funko Pop of us as Funko Pops. And I remember Sadie had a microphone, but a bunch of people thought it was like a Hitachi.
Yes.
She was holding like her accessories that she came with were like a little baby Chuck.
Yeah.
And
yes,
a microphone that everyone's like, is Sadie holding a Hitachi?
Yeah.
And I'm like, not at the same time as I'm holding my baby. No.
Right. Like, we don't shame here, but like, appropriate boundaries.
Right.
But I think mine had a guitar, but Dinah, yours was really cool. And so I based the Pride merch, the design off of the picture of you from that Funko Pop.
I love, it's a really cute design, and I am beyond flattered that you chose to do that. But also, like, I love that an artist is making art based on AI, which is what everyone's hair is on fire about right now. Like, that AI is ripping off real artists, and it's like, well, or we take the power back, right?
Yeah. And then donate the money from it to trans rights. Yeah.
Which is fabulous. I love that. I am terribly, terribly honored. And I think it's delightful that you can get all sorts of things with my Funko Pop AI face on it.
Yeah, I ordered the t-shirt as like a test, and the t-shirt like came out like I'm really happy with it. So now so my girlfriend and I are moving in together at the end of August, and I'm trying to talk her in to being like, can I get a Dinah House-Fire shower curtain for she's like, she is let's say not sold on the idea.
I mean, I'll talk her into it.
You could talk her into it. You'll have to meet her.
Yes.
And convince her that she should that it's okay to have your face looking at her while she's showering.
Well, tell her I promise not to peek. But also, are we skipping over the Gavi and girlfriend are moving in together part? Like,
yeah, he was trying to soft launch again.
Right.
Okay, I've mentioned this before, but it might have been on a different podcast. I went on a podcast that was like an astrology podcast where they this was really cool. It was the Astro Detectives podcast. where what they do, I think that was the first time I mentioned it publicly, but what they do is they get your chart, and then they design and they get astrologers who have to interview you and then decide between two charts, and one of them is yours and one of them is like a fake chart that could be yours.
Interesting.
I want to do that.
I mean, you could do it. I don't want to say they'll let anybody on, but if you go to their I'll send you the link to it. And they because if you make a show like that, you just want to get random normal people on your show to see if you can do it. And
you
it's
said
just
normal
kind of
people. Would
show.
that include anybody on this recording?
No, absolutely not. Of course not. But we're not normal, but we're regular people. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's not like you have to be some special famous person to get on the show, which is kind of fun. That's honestly kind of my favorite kinds of shows these days, is where it's just regular people, where it's not you have to be some person who's noteworthy. And I think that's kind of more compelling. Not to say that none of you people are noteworthy, because I think you both are noteworthy.
Well, I mean,
yeah,
I do have my face on a shower curtain, so
I'm wearing a shirt with your face on it right now. I think that's pretty noteworthy. No, but I think that's where I first mentioned it, but that was a month and a half, maybe 2 months ago.
Yeah, that was definitely not on our show, but I look forward to Dinah and the rest of the online friend group getting to meet her, because I found her very charming, and I think she'll be a good fit with the rest of those folks.
They're good people.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to meeting her. I've seen pictures and things, but getting to actually gossip with her will be fun.
I think you'll hit it off real well. She's personable. That sounds like a backhanded insult. It really isn't. I really
She's got a lovely personality. Too bad about that.
She's also very beautiful. not to my smoking hot wife.
Oh no,
on the pod, but I try not to make content out of my relationship, so that's why you probably haven't heard it, because I tend to try to live my life more privately these days, because I think that's healthier for everybody involved. But speaking of anniversaries, and speaking of the 10th anniversary of Dinah House-Fire, do you want to maybe give us the background on where Dinah came from?
Well, yes, I would love to. I was going to make a joke and be like, well, you stand in hell, you throw a rock. That's where Dinah came from. But, sort of Dinah is the creation of a need for a creative outlet at a time in my life when I didn't have one. And I know this will shock everyone, but I was definitely a big time theater kid.
Really?
Oh, no one saw that coming.
I was a big time theater kid in high school, and even in college I did theater stuff, and I went to school for film and did all the things. But I ended up working more in the world of technology, which I also love. And I don't know if you've ever dealt with technology before, but it's not always the most creative thing. And so I was doing that for several years. And during the course of that particular job that I was working, I met my best friend, which was awesome. And he had apparently started doing performances as a drag king before he moved here, and decided that he wanted to do a drag king pageant here locally, and asked me if I would help him, because I was a theater kid and I had done stage makeup and thought I knew what I was doing. And he asked if I would help him turn into a boy. And I said, absolutely. And so thus began my sort of dipping my toe into the world of drag, which I think it's my profile somewhere that I was raised by drag kings and wolves. And, but I kind of came into drag backwards. I came in through the king world, which, for those of you who are not familiar, drag kings are folks who are assigned female at birth performing as male entertainers. There's so many fuzzy, blurry lines and nuances of gender that actually happen in that world, but that's sort of the basics of it. Is think of a drag queen and then go, what could the male presenting version of that be? You got a drag king. So anyway, I started by dressing him and doing his makeup and basically being his hype person. And he sort of became wildly successful, and I'm super, super proud of him.
Yeah, he's like won awards.
Yeah, he's had 2 national titles. He's also, like he's not a small deal. And he's my bestie, and we became besties because he asked me and I said yes to start doing all this stuff, and we like a relationship grew, and we've been through a whole hell of a lot, and we've been to other countries together, and we've helped each other through major surgeries, and like it's a big, like a very important part of my life. But anyway, that's how I got into the drag world, because where there are kings, there will also be queens. A lot of the times the king pageants are hosted by drag queens, and a lot of the time you'll have drag queens doing like special entertainment numbers between pageantry, events, all kinds of things. So I did that with him for a few years, and he was well established by the time that Dinah sort of sprouted forth. And I had been thinking about it and thinking like, I would really like to be able to do my own character and, have my own creative moment and whatever. And I talked to someone who is now a mutual friend of all of ours, and I said, I don't want to take the spotlight off of him because he's doing all this awesome stuff and trailblazing and creating opportunities for people. But I really want to do my own drag. And she said, I don't think you're in any danger of, making him less than by doing your own thing. Like, you can both be successful. Both things can be true. And so I said, all right. And I set myself a goal of, okay, in 6 months, I want to be able to get started. And that's what I did. Like, I started buying wigs and pads and Spanx and hosiery and whatever. And so basically I did a reverse Sadie, where I started purchasing pantyhose to wear on purpose.
I was just going to say, like, that gave me, it's not exactly gender euphoria, but it's something that I'm like, oh, somebody else is getting good out of this reviled garment for me. I'm happy for you.
Well, thank you. And I mean, you get a certain amount of happiness out of it. It is still kind of a miserable thing, but like,
but you're choosing it.
Right. And it's a means to an end, right?
Right.
Because
not just getting a husband.
Right. No, yeah, the pantyhose did not land me a husband. I'll tell you that much. I have a partner now who loves me and loves Dinah, but that's not why.
So were there like previous versions of the character before you landed on being Dinah House-Fire?
Oh, that's a good question. Interestingly, so the answer is yes and no. Interestingly, I actually competed in a, I'm trying to think what they called it, like a turnaround pageant or something, when I was in high school. Like my drama club or whatever did a drag pageant essentially, which is actually a thing and goes way back, especially in the American South, and that's a whole anthropological discussion of what the hell gender is. But yes, short answer, yes. I actually created a character that's not the same as Dinah, but has some of the same features as Dinah. Back when I was probably 17 or so, or 18 maybe.
Oh, so she's been with you.
That's early.
She has. And that's like, I was still very much like in the church and all of that. And so it felt like a bit of a transgressive thing to do, but it was also done purely like in the name of comedy / it's a fundraiser for a club, and we all know we're joking, wink wink,
Right.
like,
My dad used to dress up as Aunt Esmeralda for First Baptist Church of Hammond youth conferences, but that was okay because it was a skit.
Exactly, and that's the spirit in which this was done. I believe that when I did that, so the name that I used then was Audrey Heartburn.
Oh, that's cute.
And
that's a good
I was
one.
Thank you. I was pretty pleased with myself about that. It was a pageant, so I had to have a talent, and I decided that my talent would be packing, as in a suitcase. And so I comedically sort of talked through how to pack a suitcase, and including like packing like lacy panties and how to get them not to bunch when you roll them up instead of folding them and stuff. Like, it was very silly. But it was funny, and I won, so no big deal.
Hell yeah!
Good job! Congratulations!
Thank you.
A few years late.
I keep that on my CV to this day.
You do. I just helped you edit it.
Oh, thank you. That's true. So that is sort of the very, very early version of Dinah, and I would say that. That happened at the end of high school, and then Dinah went away, or that character went away for a long time, and then didn't come back out until I was in my my mid-20s, I guess.
I'm so glad you're back.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad to be back too, and I'm glad that having been on this journey, I started my very first time was actually going to a queer prom. And so I was out in heels that I didn't know how to exist in, really, and had like victory roll hair and makeup that looked okay, and like a dress that I'm sure I'd gotten at Goodwill and put rhinestones on it, and just living my full fantasy, and it was fun. And then I started doing like open stage nights and all kinds of stuff that was unpaid, and you just show up and you get the almighty exposure. Small eye roll. But you start learning how to be an entertainer. You start learning how to work a crowd in the capacity of the character. And then I decided that I wanted to do stand-up in drag, which was scary as hell, because that wasn't a thing that was being done, at least here locally.
Yeah.
And so I started doing that, and there were some sets that went really well and some sets that didn't. And I learned that doing stand-up in drag makes you no dollars because no one knows when to give you money if you're telling jokes, which makes sense. Like, there is a logic to it. I'm not bitter about that, but because I did that and decided to step outside of my box, that allowed for a friend of mine who was the co-host of a show to say, hey, why don't you start doing that in our show? Why don't you come be like our special guest regularly? And then eventually she decided to step away from that show for lots of reasons. And I became the co-host of that show with my dear friend Gigi. And we hosted that show together for like 6 years. Like a long time. Wow. And that was a monthly show. And eventually Gigi decided to step away for lots of reasons. And I still technically have that show that I've been doing for 900 years. And and it has gone through lots of metamorphoses and iterations, but it's pretty near and dear to my heart that I've had a platform every month for like 8 or 9 years. Like I've been doing that show for a long time. So that's the outline of Dinah. I've also had several other sort of gigs at colleges and things that I've done regularly around the Central Arkansas area. Most recently, I judged the Miss Hendricks pageant, which Hendricks is a liberal arts college that is about a half hour from where I live. And I've judged it a few times and gotten to work with some really cool drag queens up there as well. And I love doing those sort of community things. So going to colleges, either performing or working with the performers. I've been able to do that quite a lot. And it's been really cool to have an impact where now I'm seeing folks that I worked with at colleges become performers themselves and like find a love for the art form of drag. In fact, actually, Melanie, who I call my dumb slut little sister because she's all of those things, she is she was a student at Arkansas Tech one year when I was hosting their drag show pageant thing that they were doing. So it's really fun to see that she is now a very polished and very professional queen who I respect, even as much as I like to make fun of her.
So in that story, I think you brought up a couple things that really we could talk about with drag. One of them is the community aspect or the chosen family aspect. So there is a drag queen with whom I am acquainted, and I'm gonna grab the link really quick so I can read so the website is Time Out New York, and they did a photo series called NYC's Drag Mothers Are Raising the Next Generation of Icons. And it was a mother-daughter, like drag mother, drag daughter photo shoot. And my girl, Nancy No Good, was on there. She was featured in this magazine because I love her so much.
I mean, you got to have pride in that, though, when you see somebody that you know in there.
I absolutely do. I was just thrilled. And if you go look at that article or if you look at Nancy's Instagram page, I'm sure she has it linked. Let's see. Does she? And what is her? Yeah. Nancy's Instagram is at She's Up to No Good. And she has the link where you can see the photo set. Candy Muse was in it.
That's awesome.
Drag Race from a couple years ago, people.
Oh, yeah.
But
Candy Muse. God love her.
I'm not gonna
It's fine. We probably are thinking the same thing.
I have no room to talk. I'm wearing very short shorts today.
Me too.
Channeling Candy. Anyway, something that we were talking about in an earlier episode this Pride Month was we were asking the question, both tongue-in-cheek and very seriously, well, was Jesus gay? But more than that, asking what aspects of modern queer culture show up in the New Testament.
Right.
That's was Jesus gay is a bit of a silly question, but is Jesus associated with concepts that are tied to the modern LGBTQ community? Doesn't make as good of a podcast episode, but it's absolutely a valid and serious question that we wanted to ask.
And it's a much easier thing to talk about than, is Jesus gay? Let's read the Bible and find out. Like that's...
Because we don't know, but we can point out specific ways that things that Jesus canonically did match with things that are connotated with the LGBTQ community now. And one of those things is chosen family. Jesus had a chosen family. In fact, he had several different circles of chosen family.
Right.
And I think is that chosen family aspect kind of central to what attracts people to drag and what keeps people doing it long term?
I think so. First of all, I want to say, was Jesus gay? The strappy sandals may surprise you, is your clickbait title there. And I had to say it because it was just like burning in my brain. But back to the subject at hand. Yeah, I think so. There are formal and informal versions of these chosen families. There are chosen families in the sense of like, there's a group of people who I am close to and rely on, and like, I called Melanie my dumb slut little sister, but like we're close, and I do care a lot about her. But we're not formally family in the sense of a drag mother, drag daughter, drag sister
Right.
relationship. And that's largely because, like I said, I was raised by drag kings and wolves. Like, I don't have a drag mother. And I've thought about that a lot over the years because, there are so many talented people in the community who I like wildly respect. And it's not as though I don't, or like I didn't want a drag mother. It's just as I was coming up, there wasn't someone that I was particularly close to or particularly wanted to emulate in that way. But my my best friend has a couple of drag kids, and they call him dad, and they ask him questions, and he stays very involved in their lives. And Melanie has a couple of kids who also, like, she very much intentionally mentors and is involved with them. And it's really a lovely thing to watch. And I think that it is one of the things that keeps the community sort of staying in the game, if you will. Like, there's this funny thing about the world of drag that, like, you can leave anytime you want, but you'll probably never completely, like, be devoid of your drag persona and your drag family. I have a couple of good friends who we referred to ourselves as the aunties, and we we went to a pageant to support my best friend, and I believe that they were maybe dancing for him or something in a talent. But anyway, but we referred to ourselves as the aunties in room 215, and we kind of publicized, hey, we're here if you need a costume stoned, or if you need to practice interview, or if you need a trim of your haircut, like, come to our room and the aunties will take care of you. And we did, like, and it was such a fun time in this little hotel room I think we were in Columbus, Ohio. But we were just doing the auntie thing to the whole community. And it was lovely. And we got to know people that we didn't really know well before. And the three of us really bonded. And we have some great pictures of being in what we like to call high whore drag at 3:00 in the morning, running through Walmart looking for food, and just yelling at each other and being stupid. And it's like, it's so dumb, but it's also like one of the most wholesome things in the world. That as grown men, essentially, we're able to, like, tend to our people and help people with no expectation of any sort of reciprocity or compensation. Like, we're there because we truly want them all to do well. And those kinds of communities and those kinds of sort of family units spring up, and they stay. One of the aunties lives in Boston now, and I text with her often. And we joke that she, as a drag queen, has gone on vacation, and we don't know when she'll be back. But that person, who is a dear friend, is still very much in my life. And I love that. Drag or no drag, we don't need lashes and heels to make us a family. But that's kind of how we got there.
Yeah.
That's truly beautiful.
It is. And when people talk about deconstructing or moving away from a certain faith community or moving out of faith communities entirely, one of the biggest things that a lot of us grieve is losing that sense of community and losing that sense of non-biological family.
Yeah.
And it hits us all, it gets us all differently, depending on what we had, what the benefits were for us of being in that community. And I'm really passionate about building a bridge between queer people and cis-het deconstructing people.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that you have to deconstruct and then not be straight or cis.
Right. No.
It's not that you have. It's not that
You're not
to.
Recruiting.
No.
Contrary to what?
Contrary to popular statements.
Yeah.
What was that lady's name? The
That was Anita Bryant, wasn't it?
Anita Bryant. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think there are things that deconstructors can learn from queer communities. Mm-hmm. I think there are a lot of similarities in our life experiences, and there's a ton of crossover, of course, between queer people and people with religious trauma, because if you've got one, you're maybe a little bit more likely to be the other. And
by the way, Anita Bryant isn't dead, so
what?
She's 84 years old.
It's not too late.
Where does she live?
I'm going to guess. It says here she's from Oklahoma, so I'm going to guess that she's in Oklahoma.
Is she near the top of a set of stairs by chance?
She's got 19 days left to die during Pride Month.
Okay, so I'm reading in the Wikipedia article, blah 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 blah. Holy crap! It says that in 2021, Bryant's granddaughter, Sarah Green, came out publicly on an episode of Slate's Our Year podcast series, announcing her pending marriage to a woman, although she was having difficulty whether she should invite her grandmother to the ceremony. Imagine fucking hating queer people so much you wouldn't go to your own fucking granddaughter's wedding.
Or that your granddaughter wouldn't feel comfortable even inviting you to her wedding.
That's bullshit. That's fucked up. Yeah.
I hope the granddaughter has or had a nice wedding.
Yeah, well, it says that she got engaged in 2021. So I don't know. People get engaged and they stay engaged for like 3 years because planning a wedding takes like 3 years now. I have a friend who got engaged in like during the pandemic and like still not married because of like, well, the wedding venue that we wanted was booked out until like 2025. Like that's how it is out here. It's crazy.
Do you know that I am actually an ordained minister and perform lots of queer weddings?
I did know that.
That's like a thing that happens quite often though. I have friends who've gotten married by drag performers before.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I'm in fact, one of the weirder moments in my life, and that's saying something, man. I got in drag and performed a wedding for the owner of the club that I work at. And the owner of that club it's complicated and I don't want to serve all of his business, but, among lots of other things, was the first Miss Gay America. And so he's like really well known as like a person in the community. He's old as hell. But I performed his wedding ceremony in drag.
Was I around for this one, or is that pre our friendship?
That was pre our friendship. Okay. Yeah.
I would love to see you to perform a wedding. That's on my bucket list.
Have you ever done a non-queer wedding?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Really?
I have. I mean, I also have straight friends.
No, I know, but like, do straight people ask for a drag queen to do their wedding?
Well, so I've never done a straight wedding while in drag. So I've done lots of straight weddings not in drag, and lots of queer weddings also not in drag. But
how many weddings have you done?
I mean,
like round number.
I mean, probably 20.
Okay,
I guess
that's more than I thought. I would have thought like 5.
No, yeah, I've done weddings where someone in the community knows that I do a wedding, and they'll say, "Hey, my cousin needs to get married. Would you come to their wedding?" And I'll say, "Sure."
Okay.
And like, just go do it. Like, doesn't cost me anything, and if that's what you want to do, that is, I believe that is something you should be able to do. And while I am technically an ordained minister, it is not a religious ceremony that I'm performing.
I mean, who would have thought that you would be in the ministry in some capacity, but not in the, not as like a missionary, not as like a,
yeah.
Some things just don't leave you.
I mean, like, yeah, I stand there. Usually I'm holding like an iPad with the script on it. It's like, do you? Okay, I now pronounce you. And I mean, they have some liberty to put in whatever they want, but
click the box, check the terms and conditions.
Right. And I, genuinely,
getting married.
Do what?
Identify all the pictures of motorcycles and traffic lights so that we know you're not a bot trying to get married.
You select the traffic light.
I mean, how long do you think it's going to be before somebody tries to marry a chatbot?
Are you telling me it hasn't happened?
I'm surprised it hasn't happened already. Like, do you remember hearing about this thing? Like last year or the year before, there was because I kept getting ads on my Instagram for something called Replica AI.
Yeah.
And that it was like an AI girlfriend that would like role play with you. They would say Replica AI will role play. It was like a Wojak meme that they would have with like the Chad, the guy with the blonde hair and the beard would like go up next to like the NPC picture person and say Replica AI is a chat bot who will role play with you. And then apparently they had to change it because there was like it just got like really gross.
Yeah.
Or something. And then there was all the people who were like, they lobotomized my AI girlfriend. And they were just like, she's just totally different now. And she just has a different personality that she used to have. And they were like legitimately like mourning the death of a loved one. It was so wild. But also like, we're not that, like, you also do feel for these people that even if it's not a real person that's on the other end of the thing that they're talking to, they do get some comfort for it. And then they went
right.
and they changed it for whatever reason. It's like,
huh.
Did you hear about this?
I did not hear about that. That's fascinating.
I heard about the replica, but I did not hear about the end of the story.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, that is sad. And the baser part of me wants to make like a gross joke, but it is actually quite interesting because even if the AI that you're talking to is AI and not a person, as people, like, we develop relationships, or at least we assign lots of characteristics of relationships to whatever it is. Like,
yeah, i.e. why people name their Roombas.
Yeah, and I mean, Wilson in Castaway, like, I cried when he lost Wilson.
Yeah.
And that, like, it was a volleyball. But like, we need, like, we crave interaction, we crave having someone there. And so even if it's not quote unquote real, like, that can still feel like a major loss.
Yeah. I'm just I was having a conversation. I was out at dinner last night talking to some people about how, we all have friends who, like, during COVID, they just kind of they had introverted tendencies. And then when COVID quarantined everybody, they all just kind of like went into a hole or whatever, or some of them went into a hole and just went on that track, and they got weird, and they forgot, I don't want to say they forgot how to interact with people, but like they got conditioned to one thing and they never really made the effort to get back out. And and for those people, like, I can understand why having an AI girlfriend who will love you no matter what, and like there's zero, it's like truly unconditional
and not risky,
and not like, oh, I have to go out and interact with people and face the social stigma of I'm doing everything wrong. I forgot how to interact with people because I was literally had no one to talk to for 2 years.
I mean, I had a baby during the pandemic, and when I started sleeping somewhat and getting out of the house again, I definitely felt like I forgot how to interact with other humans, adult humans.
I mean, we were lucky in that we like literally had to talk to each other.
Yeah.
Like we were, that's like when we started the podcast, and we're like, okay, we have to talk to each other, like, and have a extended whatever, what have you, social interaction for like a couple hours every, week or whatever. Yeah. And
speaking of extended social interactions without much of a plan or a purpose, let's go take up the offering and come back and talk some more about drag.
Excellent.
Hey, Sadie here. If this is your first time listening to the Leaving Eden podcast, make sure you go back and check out episode 57. It's a primer episode for new listeners. That episode tells my personal story and gives you all the terms and information that you'll need to know going forward. Also, check out our cult true crime series, The First Family of Fundamentalism, so that you can get the whole cult story. If you like our show, you can support us by joining our Patreon, where we have extended and uncensored episodes as well as other bonus content available. You can also join in the discussion in our Facebook group. That group is called Eden Exodus. Tell a friend, tell a family member, tell your worst enemy. The Leaving Eden podcast is a fully independent podcast, and we really appreciate your support. Now, back to the show. We are back from our offering break. We are having the Leaving Eden 2024 drag brunch with our fave, Dinah House-Fire. Thanks again, Dinah, for being here.
I'm glad to.
I think we may have forgot we were recording for most of that last half, but that's okay.
Probably.
That's what we're here to do.
I mean, yeah.
So I was talking about how I really feel like I have a personal mission to build bridges between the LGBTQ community and the deconstructing community, and to be somebody who points out the similarities, and to be somebody who encourages all of us in either or both of those communities to care for each other well and share the things that we so naturally share and all of that.
Yeah.
And I think part of that is maybe demystifying drag. And the reason I wanted to talk specifically about drag is not just because it was Dinah's birthday, and that is thrilling and wonderful, but because I think early deconstructors have heard of drag bands and have heard of drag queen story hours, but may just not know what drag is or what it does for the people who love it so much.
Yeah, I think at its core, drag is performance art.
Mm-hmm.
Drag is a celebration of silliness. Like, I don't know. Like, so I think of myself as a comedy queen primarily, and a comedy queen is a queen who does funny things and performs sort of funny songs and says funny things on microphones and whatever, hopefully. Right. But I don't know. I think of drag, like, there is a sense of sort of, yes, you are portraying someone of another gender. Sure. But, like, to say that drag is female impersonation is really missing the point, in my opinion. There's no ounce of me that thinks that I look like a woman, right? Like that, like a quote real woman, and
Right.
do with that what you will. That's not the point. And it is deeply unserious to think that I'm ever going to look like someone who is actually a woman. But I get to explore and play with the things that I think are fantastic and wonderful and beautiful and fun and funny about being a woman, right? So I get to play with the idea of a woman having, voluptuous curves or big lips or, a tiny pointy little nose and giant cartoon eyes. Like, I get to play with those things, and I get to joke about doing terrible, nasty things to ungodly looking men, and like, I get to poke fun at all of those things, and it is a creative outlet. It is a celebration of what is silly about gender, what is attractive about gender. Like, it plays with all of those things, and it is really, really about having a good time. Like, at the end of the day, it's about having a good time. In my mind, there is nothing innately sexual about drag. Drag can be sexy.
Yeah.
And it can be provocative. But for my nickel, there is nothing less sexually appealing than thinking about having sex while in drag. Like, the logistics are crazy. There are 79 layers of fabric between my skin and the universe. Like, there ain't no sex happening. So, like, we can take that off the table. And that's not to say that that's everyone's experience, whatever, but in my experience, that's not a thing. It is not innately sexual. Drag is also a way to create that community, a way to bring people together. I've noticed that it depends on what kind of show you're attending, as far as what the tenor of that that experience will be. So if you're going to a nightclub and watching a show that starts at 1:00 in the morning, you're probably going to get raunchier, crazier stuff, sexier stuff. Then if you're going to a brunch on a Saturday or a Sunday morning, those tend to be much more family friendly, for lack of a better term. They're much more toned down, generally speaking. I love doing brunch shows because I get to do camp and silly stuff, and they eat it up. Like, I can do an ABBA number, and I can do a Dolly Parton number, and the people will eat that up. If I do that at 1:00 in the morning, less so.
Okay. You keep referring to the dress up and the costumes and the wigs and the entertainment and the theater kid energy of it all.
Yes.
And that sounds like that's one of the things that most attracted you to drag. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. I like to flash back to the very, very origins of going to that pageant with my best friend. I literally told him that we needed to go to a store because I needed to get a spiral notebook and a pen, because I was so fascinated by everything that I was seeing.
Wow.
Because I'd never seen anything like it before. And so there was that, like, immediate fascination with all of these people coming together and doing this weird ass thing. And like, it felt really subversive at the time, because I was seeing primarily AFAB people presenting as men, but they all knew what was going on, and it was like they all brought their stuff and they were going to do the thing, and it was incredible. And it felt like an entire culture that I didn't understand and had never seen. And I like just mind blown. But yeah, there is also just that undercurrent of I want to do the creative thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like I want to do the interesting thing and make myself look like someone else, and be able to perform, and you know, everyone loves you because you just are this character, hopefully. Mm-hmm. Right.
I love you.
Well,
yeah.
I love you too.
Thank you.
The closest comp that I've seen to this, and I am far from the first person to make this observation, is pro wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
Is, you know, because you play just this totally, you know, caricature of a person, and you're playing a character who is you, but who is like also a different person, but it's also a persona that you inhabit and that you exist as.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I love that. And in fact, I think that pro wrestling is one of the closest analogs to drag, because it is about spectacle and character and costume and show and inhabiting that character.
It's just somewhat less about gender.
Well,
Not that it's not about gender. It's just
that, like,
it's just not to the full extent.
It's that I do feel like if, you know, and we had WrestleMania in Philly a couple months back, and I remember I was walking down South Street during WrestleMania, and they had like a wrestling ring set up on South Street, and they had the whole street blocked off, and they had people like in the ring. Like, you see it and you're like, this is it. I mean, it's cartoonish
Mm-hmm.
in real life, and you get people who are just so like, the men who do pro wrestling are like a caricature of masculinity.
Yes.
They like, that is in the same way that, you know, you doing drag is a caricature of femininity.
Yeah, I mean, I think wrestling is drag for the cisheads. Like,
yeah. And everyone who's watching it just kind of like buys into the fact that, like, we know this is a show. We know this is like ridiculous, but, you know, we're just going to, you know, to use a theater or an improv term, we're going to yes and to whatever is going on here.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely accurate. Like, wrestling is so draggy, and I love that. Like, I love that it exists. I've found that in the years that I've taught theater, I've done develop a wrestling persona unit, because that allows them to learn about characterization, sure, but also like explore what it is to be a character outside of your own personality, and, you know, figure out a gimmick, and, you know, play with these sort of different campy things that you couldn't normally do as a person just walking down the sidewalk. And for me, it's always really, I get a kick out of seeing what they come up with. But yeah, it is creating that larger than life character. And I think that's some of the joy of it, is finding that character. It takes a while to find who your character is, and to really establish, like, I don't want to say a brand because it sounds really capitalistic.
Sure.
But like, to establish that style that is signature to yourself. I mean, I do personally a lot of campy stuff, over the top and silly, and you know, a little bit trashy, but fun at the same time. And that's Dinah. That's not necessarily all of drag, right? Like, you've got glamorous, gorgeous queens that are very fashion focused, and that's their thing. You've got scary, sort of goth queens, and more sort of, I don't know how to, like, hip hop or urban, like, centered queens that really experiment with those styles that are more typical of like the Black and Latinx communities. Like you see people lean into the thing or those things that really makes their hearts happy, and I think that's the beauty of it. Like it's not really about gender. It's not really about sex. It is about leaning into the things that make you happy and then inviting other people to play in that playground with you. And you get to kind of set the rules. Like, you get to choose what that playground looks like. And there's something really empowering and freeing about that. You get to create those boundaries.
See, to me, that's another similarity that could be pointed out with deconstruction, because a lot of us deconstructed and just plain didn't know who we were.
Yeah.
Or what to do with ourselves.
I find this, this so interesting because I'm not like a big wrestling fan or anything, but I was listening to who was that? I think it was an interview with like Dave Bautista, who is, who made it big as a wrestler and then transitioned into acting. And then you see him as a wrestler, he's like this scary, serious guy. And then you see him in like Guardians of the Galaxy. And he's this character who's very literal, but he's, very much like a comedic character. And you have to wonder if you end up, finding a persona that you really like that works for you, do you feel at all pigeonholed by that? Like, oh, this is the character that I have to play forever? Or do you feel like, oh, now I have this, character that I can do, and then there's all of these things that I can do with that, all these directions I can take that in?
I think the latter. I think for me, when I started, I really wanted Dinah to be this very like retro 1950s inspired character and only ever have red hair and wear pearls and pumps all the time. And that is still part of the character of Dinah, but that is not the entirety. And I think that there is something more in the spirit of that person that lives in the weird other stuff that I do, because that aesthetic didn't end up working for all the things that I needed to be able to do. But this, like I say, the spirit of it is still there. I still wear pearls most of the time. But then I also wear, a psychedelic bell-bottom jumpsuit and do ABBA, right? Like,
see, I always see a vintage inspiration, even when you're doing stuff that is a little more thematic.
Yeah.
Like even like I'm thinking of your Little Mermaid outfit.
Right.
That is still the construction. I'm not trying to be funny. The construction and the shaping of the outfit still have a vintage flair.
I mean, it's definitely in the intent that there is still a vintage nature to it. And
the fabrics that are used and the way that they're cut still feels vintagey.
Well, if I'm thinking about something from like the perspective of a musical artist, say you're in a band and you have a band that has a very specific sound and you're successful in that specific sound, you never feel the need. You're like, oh, well, this is going to be my drag side project that I do, as a different persona, and I'm going to name it something else.
I mean, that some people do that.
I was going to say,
is that
unless you're Tobias Forge.
Is that a thing that people do?
Some do. It's not extremely common, but yeah, some people, in fact, a lot of times when people do that, you'll have someone do, like you might have an established queen decide that they want to do performances as a king or as a male lead. And they do, and they go for it, and they're awesome. I have a friend who started off as a king and was very successful. And then she decided that she wanted to have another personality who is a queen. And so she does both. So sometimes she is Richard and sometimes she is Phoenix. And they're very different presentations, but it's the same human being inside of both of them. And both are fantastic to watch, but incredibly different. Because Richard is kind of one of the scary kings. And then Phoenix is delightfully feminine and, a queen, sparkly. And so, like, those are very different presentations that this one person is able to do.
I have an acquaintance who does that as well.
Yeah, and it's really cool to watch. And, I think in general, like, Phoenix doesn't really come out very often, but when she does, she does. And that's awesome.
My friend is a drag king and a burlesque dancer and a drag queen. So 3 different personas. And I've never seen them in person doing their drag king bit, but I've seen a lot of videos and they are so much fun doing that.
Absolutely.
And I have seen them, I think, both as a drag queen and a burlesque dancer, if I'm not mixing my timelines up.
Nice.
Yeah.
The burlesque community here is really starting to take off. But it really didn't exist when I started doing drag, and then it just kind of has started to trickle, and now I'm seeing more people get involved with that. But I think it's a fascinating art form.
But see, that was another thing that when you deconstruct, a lot of times you are making a new personality, or you're making a new version of yourself. Or you're choosing to present your gender differently, even if you're not transitioning or using different pronouns or identifying as a different gender. You may be presenting your gender very differently.
Absolutely.
During deconstruction. So it's really interesting to hear how you're talking about the things that you love about drag and how that echoes like the most common deconstruction experiences that I'm so familiar with.
Yeah, and I think when it comes to like the experience of drag in my life, not necessarily as a performer, but just as a person, I think about how as a kid, I was sort of shielded from knowing that it existed as much as possible. And, if RuPaul was on whatever daytime talk show we were watching, the channel would be changed, or there was no sort of recognition that was a thing, other than there are some men who like to wear dresses and they're bad, basically. And so the very idea that drag would become like a thing in my life is kind of wild. Just knowing that trajectory in my own life. And I will say at this point, at the very least, my mother is intrigued by the fact that I do drag. And
that's good.
Yeah. And not unsupportive. My parents have never seen me do drag live. They're aware that I do, but it's one of those, like, we just kind of don't talk about it. But, my mom has expressed interest in seeing me do drag and coming to a show. And I don't know that I don't know how that would go. That I think that it would freak me out more than her, quite frankly. I think that would make me go, oh God, I can't swear and make dick jokes. And like,
I was going to say, your raunchy jokes are going to suffer more.
I mean, you could make jokes about your mom being in the audience.
That's
true. Why you have to keep it clean.
It's like, guys, give it up for my mom. I'm not going to be able to say
exactly. Much like me when my dad started listening to this podcast like 3.5 years ago.
No, your dad listened from the beginning, and he would send us comments.
He didn't tell me he was listening until like a few episodes in.
Yeah.
Aw,
Yeah.
I love
It's
that.
that. Yeah.
But yeah, it does. It shifts your ability to say the terrible thing that you want to say, because you don't want to be disrespectful to them, but also you think about, oh, hey, that's this person that thinks this way, and this is not going to go well. Even though I'm in my 30s and a grown up with a career and all those things, like I would still be watching my mouth.
I hope you get the perfect opportunity one day where it's just the right venue and the right time for you and her.
Yeah.
Because that could totally, like, in the way I look at things, like that could totally happen where it was the right gig, the right venue, the right time in her life, the right moment in your life kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think that my mother would be a daytime drag person, not a nighttime drag person, and that's entirely fine, because I think that you got to know your audience, but your audience also needs to know the show that they're attending.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you guys go to Pride this year? So far?
It hasn't happened here yet.
Hasn't happened?
I missed the one that was here a couple weeks ago because I didn't realize it was happening until like the day of. It's a new one. But then generally, like the big one here happens in October, which we've talked about before because it's ungodly hot outside right now.
Oh, I know. I'm tomorrow. I'm about to get on a plane to go to St. Louis.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've seen it's like 97, 95, and like 70% humidity.
Yeah, it's like
weekend.
living inside of like, I don't know, a hot wet blanket. It's just gross.
I'm wearing all linen. I'm packing all linen, only linen.
But make sure you've got enough because you might have to switch out into new linen throughout the day.
Yeah.
There's nothing worse than wet linen.
And please wear sunscreen on both arms. Are y'all ready to be done with the Leaving Eden Drag Brunch? Anyway, This has been the Leaving Eden Drag Brunch, where a show about nothing and everything.
Show about drag. We actually talked about a real topic this week, which was about drag.
Yeah.
And what drag means to people who perform it.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's
a
good.
real thing.
We get let our hair down, have a good time, talk about whatever comes up. Dinah, thank you so much for joining us for what is this? The 7th or 8th time, probably?
Something like that.
Because you've done a drag brunch every year, and then you've done a couple other episodes throughout.
Yeah. So it's probably 7 or 8.
Thanks for always being there when we need you.
It is my absolute honor to be here, and I love you guys, and thank you for having me.
And all proceeds of Dinah's AI-generated Funko Pop t-shirt.
Which was not AI. The Funko Pop was AI generated. The design was made by me. Just want to let you guys know that this is
Funko Pop.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
All proceeds from that are going to Point of Pride, which is an organization that provides direct one-to-one assistance to trans people for all sorts of gender-affirming things, all the way from gender affirmation surgery down to laser hair removal, binders, things like that are less expensive. What I love about Point of Pride is that when they cover something for a person, they cover the whole thing. So if they're covering laser hair removal for a person, they cover all of their treatments. Or if they cover a gender affirmation surgery for somebody, they cover the whole thing.
It's not like they pay for 60% of it and then you're still like, you have like,
right,
some $1,000 of medical debt.
Right. So whether they're covering something that costs $8,000 or something that costs $26,000, they cover all of it for the person in question. And that's why I personally love Point of Pride so much, because I feel like that is a effective way to change lives, to make trans people safer in the world, to make trans people happier in the world. That's what appeals to me.
Make it easier for people to exist. I said make it easier for people to just exist.
Yep.
Yes. I love that.
That's why I have always wanted to work with Point of Pride. But any proceeds from anything that was ever a Pride Month design in years past, or this year's Pride design, which is the Dinah t-shirt, coffee cup, shower curtain, 100% of what skateboard.
Yeah, you want a
yes.
Dinah House-Fire. Do you want to grind on Dinah's face?
Hell yeah.
There it is.
You can do it, but only on skateboard form.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you guys for tuning in. I guess you're Dinah House-Fire at Dinah House-Fire on socials.
I'm at Dinah House-Fire on Instagram, and I think I'm at Dinah House-Fire 1 on Twitter.
You still use Twitter?
I haven't.
Yeah.
Twitter's mostly porn these days, yeah?
You can follow me on social media at GAVRIELHACOHEN. That's not what I am on Twitter. I don't have a Twitter that you can follow because I don't use that for anything. I'm only really on Instagram, and I only post pictures of food I eat and me hanging out with my girlfriend and her family.
You can follow me on Instagram
cats.
at Sadie Carpenter Music. You can follow my other show on Instagram at Good Girls Bad Days. You can follow me on I'm on Threads at Sadie Carpenter Music, on TikTok at Sadie Carpenter 1. I also still have a Twitter, but don't use it.
You mean X?
I will quit misgendering or dead naming Twitter when Elon quits dead naming his daughter.
And that's on that.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Happy Pride. We're going to be back next week. We're talking about Dancing with the Devil. Is that Dancing with the Devil?
Yes.
The name of the... I watched this documentary about a dancing cult on TikTok. It's crazy. Oh, it's Dancing for... So we're going to be back next week. We're talking about Dancing for the Devil, which is a documentary about a religious cult that came out of people dancing on TikTok. It's on Netflix. We're going to be talking about that. We've had a lot of people messaging us about that and asking about it, and I think that that's a perfect way for us to come back from Pride Month, get into our summer content. It's going to be a lot of fun. Can't wait to see you guys there. You guys have a great day. Bye-bye.
But oh,